All right, guys. So, welcome on to Let's Talk Cinema. Episode 4 now? We're already on episode 4. And so, so welcome back to the weekly episode where we talk, all things movie news and some other stuff, pertaining movie actors and stuff like that. So, somewhat of a quiet week this week with the holidays, not much going on. I did the episode earlier this week on Christmas Eve. Wasn't too much to talk about there either. So this couple weeks, in terms of actual movies that are out right now, it's crazy. But just with news and stuff, it's a little bit quiet right now. But anyway, so we're here on the Sunday night instead of a Monday because New Year's Eve is tomorrow. So for just the for both of us, it was easier to do it tonight. So anyways, we should be back on the Monday schedule though next week. So Greg is here again. And we're here for Let's Talk Cinema. So, a few things to talk about, of course. So, of course, we'll start off with a box office report. Huge stuff about that. So, that'll probably be a good, thing to start off with here. And then we got a couple news topics, including the Us trailer the trailer for Jordan Peele's new film, Us, that's coming in, I think it was March 2009, or April 2019?
Yeah, I think it's sometime in, the spring.
Yeah. And so that one's coming. And then we're going to talk a little bit about The Quiet Place, sequel possibilities, and stuff like that. And also, we're going to share our thoughts, or at least I'll share my thoughts, and then we'll both discuss Aquaman movie, and, of course, then finish up with the question of the week. So, anyways, without further ado, let's get into then our box office report from this week. And you know what? To be honest, not much has changed. Since last week, when I did this report for the movies last week, not a lot has changed. There were two movies, I believe, or two big movies at least, that came out since then, which are Vice and Holmes and Watson, which both premiered on Christmas Day. But other than that, it's really all the same players here with this box office. So here are the top 6 performers at this weekend's box office. And, of course, these are provided by Box Office Mojo. It is important, though, to note that these are estimate numbers. Since we're on a Sunday here, the actual numbers are coming out tomorrow afternoon. But usually the estimates are pretty close to the actuals anyways. So here we go. Number 1, no surprise here, Greg, Aquaman is that number 1 for the second straight week with 51,550,000 at the box office, which is a little bit down from their 72 million, I believe, it was last week. Number 2, then, we have Mary Poppins Returns. Again, not much of a surprise. They have 28 million this weekend. Number 3, then, is Bumblebee, making 20.5 million at the box office. Number 4, then, is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I like. This exact order was the same last week, so pretty interesting stuff. Spider-Man takes home 18,315,000. The Mule is at number 5, and they take home 11,780,000, which is actually up from last week, so that's interesting. And then to round things out, number 6 is Vice, and they take home 7,791,000. So Holmes and Watson was 7th. But we will talk about that in just a couple seconds. But I don't think there's too many surprises here, right?
Yeah, that's probably what you would expect.
I think a couple of these, I think the ranking of these is fine, right? That's not much of a surprise. But I think some of the numbers are interesting a little bit. But like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, so those are the numbers there for the weekend box office, or at least the estimates as of now, but I'm sure they won't be too far off. So here we go. So those are the estimates. So let's talk about Aquaman first. So Aquaman brought in an estimated 85.4 million this weekend internationally, for an overseas cum totaling 560 million now. Internationally, which then is a global tally reaching 748.8 million, so basically 750 million. This makes the film the 3rd largest worldwide release in the DC Extended Universe, now topping Suicide Squad. So interesting stuff. I mean, you and I have been talking about it making $1 billion and all this stuff, right? And it's interesting. I mean, it's still doing well internationally. Of course, now it opens domestically its second week. And they're already at 750 million. So they're 3/4 of the way there. And now it's the third largest worldwide release for the DC Extended Universe. What the top two, would that be like Wonder Woman? What would the second one be?
It's it's either Wonder Woman, Justice League, or Batman versus Superman. I think
Yeah.
Justice League versus I
Yeah.
think Justice League hit 1 billion. And then yeah, it's either Batman versus Superman or Wonder Woman
Yeah.
would be the other.
Well, no, just Justice League didn't do well. Remember? I don't think it did a bill. I think it did like closer to 500. Justice League.
Yeah, I don't. I thought it hit 1 billion. Yeah, I don't have the numbers, but
Yeah.
it didn't do
Anyways.
well critically, but in terms
No.
of
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it was fairly disappointing. For DC, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, really interesting stuff that it's now at 750 million. Only 2 weeks it's been open domestically, of course. And they're already there. So I saw a bunch of articles pointing this out too. One of these articles is from the playlist, I guess. The playlist has an article on here. The title, Aquaman hits 750 million worldwide and is now on its way to an inevitable 1 billion. So they and a bunch of other sources are predicting that it will hit 1 billion. Turns out you and I were both probably a little wrong on this one, right?
yeah. Just to clear it up, Justice League was $157 million gross. So yeah, no, it wasn't. I thought it was had gross more than that.
Okay.
So it must be. Yeah.
But yeah, so you and I were talking about it hitting 1 billion, Aquaman,
Yeah.
and I think we both said it might be close to Wonder Woman, but we don't think it's gonna be more than Wonder Woman, which I believe is 850 about. The box office for that, but it looks like it's gonna top it now. So
Yeah.
crazy stuff for Aquaman, and you know what? It's good for DC. I think this is the start of something, and whether Shazam performs like Aquaman, I don't know. What do you think of that? Do you think now that this movie came out and it had a lot of success, do you think that's gonna help Shazam? Or
I don't know. I mean, they're pretty separate properties. Like, probably a lot of people wouldn't even associate Shazam with DC, right? Like, I don't think it's not a widely known IP. So I don't think it ultimately would affect it that much. I don't know. Not as much as like a Batman or like a Superman or like a IP that's really close with Aquaman. But
okay.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. And I think Shazam is definitely a different. It's more of a comedy, so I think it's difficult to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think it's difficult to. Yeah, it's just because going into Aquaman, right? I mean, a ton of people very negative about the DCU, right? Given Justice League, or at least critically, right? Given Justice League, Wonder Woman, I think, was received, fairly well. But it's just a lot of the stuff, right, comparing it to Marvel and whatever, obviously DC way below Marvel right now going into this. So that would be my thing, is that I just think this may spark a little bit into people and get them going to Shazam. But I think you're ultimately right. I think the stories aren't connected really, right? Like they're two different movies. And I feel like Aquaman has a little bit more of that appeal of just not necessarily interested in, the superhero, but just everything around it, with the Atlantis and the sea and everything like that. I think that's just something that's interesting. And I think Shazam is going, more back towards, you have to kind of know a little bit about that superhero. Anyways, that's just my thoughts there. So, interesting stuff. So then we get to Mary Poppins Returns, and they delivered a 19% improvement over last weekend's opening. So their second weekend actually proved to be 1/5 better than their opening weekend. So this is a clue that it could be a long-lasting film. And do you think that explains the lackluster opening? Because they really, what did they have opening last week? Um, I don't remember, but I think it was like 20 million, for last week. Um, yeah. But anyways, what would you attribute to this improvement in their second weekend?
I'm not sure, honestly. Maybe just more people are going out to the movies. This past or
Yeah.
this weekend opposed to last weekend. I don't know. I mean, there's probably a few different factors. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure how to explain that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you and I talked about this last time too. With I forget which film was it? Was it Mary Poppins? It might have been. Or maybe not. But it was. We talked about how you brought up the point of, well, there's just so many movies out there, right? And I think it's definitely. I think we can both agree that if Mary Poppins opened without, Aquaman, Bumblebee, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse still being in, I think it makes, 50 million at least, right?
Yeah.
Or at least is a significant improvement from what they made. And so I think that's definitely comes into it too. But yeah, it's just interesting that they've had kind of a jump now from last weekend, and yeah, it's hard to kind of stick that on a single reason. But yeah, could just be more moviegoers, and just more people wanting to see Mary Poppins. I would also say too that I think a movie kind of like Aquaman or Bumblebee, those two, I think people want to see those first before a Mary Poppins. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think maybe people are more excited or more, have more anticipation for those two than a Mary Poppins. Um, Anyways, that could be it too. So then we get to the Mule, and again, very interesting here. The Mule saw an impressive 24% improvement compared to last weekend, resulting in a domestic cume that now tops 60 million with 3 weeks from the Mule being open. So, yeah, again, another big improvement, and it looks like Clint Eastwood has definitely some sway, even though the critics haven't loved the Mule. Going into it, some people thought this might be an Oscar film, right? I mean, you get names like Clint Eastwood and Bradley Cooper, but it doesn't seem like that. But it's still performing very well. So there you go. All right, so now let's talk about Holmes and Watson. So Holmes and Watson wasn't a hit with critics or audiences this week. The film received a D+ cinema score from opening day crowds, which was reflected in this weekend's performance, with the film delivering an estimated 7.3 million. And the film has now grossed just shy of 20 million. After 6 days in release. So this came out Christmas Day, and now we're still, going to the weekend here. And so to put that in perspective, previous comedies headlined by Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, of course, Step Brothers had a 30.9 million opening weekend, and Talladega Nights had 47 million opening weekend. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, I obviously haven't seen the movie, but haven't really
Yeah.
heard good things. I thought the trailer was pretty terrible. Personally,
Yeah.
especially when you compare it or put it up against, Step Brothers to Talladega Nights. I just don't think it
Yeah.
really compares, at least just in the trailer. But yeah, I mean, it's probably indicative of how good the movie is. I would guess, and obviously
Yeah.
critics and audiences alike are pretty have a pretty shared opinion on this one. So.
Yeah, and a lot of that happens with Will Ferrell movies, right? Especially those two, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights. The critics always, it's obviously not going to be a high-rated movie, but audiences have loved them, right? I mean, those are kind of two classics for a lot of people, Step Brothers especially, for me included. Huge Will Ferrell fan, and I don't know. It's kind of sad. I wanted this to be successful, but you're right. After seeing that trailer, I was like, oh, I don't know. And also with the thing with Will Ferrell for me is, I think he really thrives in a movie like Anchorman, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, where that, R rating, you know what I mean? And so he can do and say kind of whatever he wants. I think he's a really funny comedian when he's in that position. But when he's in a movie like this that's PG, it's a PG movie with him and John C. Reilly. You know, they're really funny. I mean, they're great comedians, but I just don't think they can quite take it as far as maybe they could have. Maybe that's why I'm still not sure why they made a PG movie. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. And yeah, I mean, in the trailer they're doing like these fake British accents and stuff. Apparently that isn't. You know, a lot of audiences, you know, aren't a big fan of that either throughout the movie. So I don't know. I think ultimately they just kind of did this like to joke around. Like obviously the whole thing is just a joke, right? It's a big spoof on Sherlock Holmes. But I think they kind of took it too far. You know, like they took the joke too far and it just did not turn out well. So I don't know. Hopefully I'm getting around to see it because I you know, I'm going to give it a chance, you know, because I do like Will Ferrell a lot and John C. Reilly's great too. And, yeah, it's just disappointing to see because the last two ones that they've been on together have been really great. And this one not so much. There you go. All right. So I talked about this last week, Greg, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. So 2018 has delivered nearly 11.7 billion in domestic ticket sales and now will top 2016's record year by more than 400 million. So just last weekend, this record was broken. So now 2018 is the biggest, or holds the record for the most, you know, money on domestic ticket sales. And what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain movies nowadays where, you know, it's a you know, everybody wants to go out and see them, and seeing it in theater is obviously a much different experience than seeing it at home. Yeah, I'm kind of referring to some of these big superhero movies that kind of everybody's a part of. Everybody goes and sees, and there was obviously the Avengers film this year, Spider-Man, obviously now Aquaman, big blockbuster superhero movies.
Yep.
And I think just a lot of movies that are really great and to see in theaters, and it shows obviously with those numbers. So.
And it's crazy to think about this because, you know, you named a lot of, and Black Panther too.
Right. I completely forgot.
It's a huge one. But it's crazy to think because there wasn't a big Star Wars movie this year. There was Solo, right? But, you know, that wasn't one of the episode films. So it wasn't a Star Wars movie. You know, considering the movies that came out this year, I think this is still pretty impressive. And then you look forward, I talked about this last episode, but you look forward then to 2019. You have Aladdin, Lion King, Star Wars, Avengers Endgame. You know, the list goes on and on. Captain Marvel's out too. So it's crazy to think, like, probably next year we'll top this record, right? I mean, with those huge movies coming out, I think it's inevitable at this point. And so it's really great. I think this kind of shows a trend, and I, you know, talk about this with TV all the time, with all these streaming services now and all this stuff, right? It's, I think, just a trend. I think every year from now on it's just going to be better and better and better, you know, with the stuff that we're getting. And, you know, especially the superhero movies, like you said, that's a huge, huge thing right now. And 2019 definitely is, you know, definitely keeping up with that. So, you know, it's going to be crazy to see what 2019 has in store. But what if you had to predict right now, with your knowledge, do you think it's going to top 2018?
What's that?
Do you think that 2019 will top this year with those movies?
I mean,
it's really hard to say now, but yeah.
I think it's if you like what you said. I mean, if you kind of try to match up all the big domestic earners, you look at Avengers, another Avengers film, Black Panther. I mean, there's not really. I mean, Captain Marvel, I'm not sure if that will do as well. But if you just try to match it up, I mean, it's very possible. And there'll be obviously a Star Wars episode film, so that's gonna be big. It Part 2, I believe, so a big horror film.
I forgot about that one. That's true. That's true.
another Jordan Peele film.
Yep.
So I think it's very likely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then, of course, we're bound to get a couple surprises in there, right? I mean, we had some surprises this year. Solo probably was one of those surprises. I believe it made about 600 million at the box office, which is surprising to some. Venom, I mean, who saw Venom making 800
Yeah.
plus million? So we're bound to get some surprises in there. The Joker movie as well. I'm not sure how well that'll do with Joaquin Phoenix, but that might be in the loop. So yeah, some crazy stuff coming. So anyways, to wrap up the box office then, the total gross so far up to this weekend. So for Aquaman, this is domestic numbers, of course, but they're up to 188,785,000 now. Mary Poppins is up to 99 million. And Bumblebee now up to 66,778,000. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is at 103 million. The Mule 60,738,000, and Vice is now at 17,697,000. So almost 17,700,000. So there you go. That is the box office then, which is, I guess, a big news point here because of all the movies that are out right now. So pretty crazy. And I know that you mentioned to me, because I was talking about the theater and how busy it was when I went, and you said, well, no films are opening this weekend, right? You said, well, there's no new openings, but it's just, I think what happened is, like, there were so many movies coming out at once. I think it's going to hold the people over for the next, 3 weeks at least. And the first couple of weeks of January, even, The Escape Room, I believe, is probably the only big-time movie that's coming out in the first, 2 or 3 weeks of January. So I think these are definitely here to stay for a couple weeks. So anyways. All right, so let's get on to the news topics now. We got a couple here to talk about. And the first is, of course, kind of the focus, I guess, of this episode, is the trailer for Jordan Peele's Us new film coming in the spring. Crazy stuff here. So you and I talked about the synopsis that came out just a couple weeks ago, I believe, and now we get a trailer. So you've seen the trailer. What did you think of it? And are you looking forward to this film?
I mean, yeah, it was a really, really good I thought it was a good trailer. It looked really interesting. Definitely got me more interested. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously, I don't like to see too much in a trailer, and I think I just pretty much got the gist of the film. I don't think anything was spoiled or anything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously too early to say, but I think it gave me a good feel for it. Obviously, after Get Out, you kind of have to, be really excited for any Jordan Peele project.
It's true.
Especially when it looks like it could be kind of even a similar tone, or at least a similar kind of idea, and obviously another horror film for him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it got me excited.
And, let's just talk about how chilling that was, right? Crazy stuff. I agree with you. I thought it was a great trailer. I think it's really kind of similar to that same feel of Get Out, and I think it's brilliant for him to just return to that. I mean, why try something new when you know that worked? And like we talked about back 2 weeks ago, got nominated for Best Picture, right? Get Out did. So I mean, yeah, why not follow that same formula? And yeah, it looks really interesting, really kind of frightening trailer. But did a great job of of getting us prepared for the film. I don't know. I don't know that I quite agree with you. I think it did show maybe a little bit too much. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts. I thought they maybe should have stopped when they showed the whole concept of it, right? That it was kind of themselves attacking themselves, right? Pretty much. When there's like kind of like a clone, I guess, of them. That's kind of what you got too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like they could have stopped at that instead, and then after that we saw a couple scenes where I just thought it went a little bit too in depth. But it is a first trailer, so they got to show us quite a bit to get us into it. But again, it's Jordan Peele, right? Like, even if this trailer was bad, I think people would still at least kind of look forward to it, and you know, want to see it. So, anyways, I thought it was a crazy good trailer, and great way to end off the year, I think, too, in terms of trailers and stuff like that. So, crazy stuff. So, do you think? I mean, it's hard to say now, but you know, do you think this is something that's going to be similar to Get Out? Do you think this gets, you know, an Oscar nomination at the end of the year?
I don't know. I mean,
It's
yeah. I mean,
tough,
it's
but
possible. It's possible.
well, I just
I think probably. Yeah. I mean, I think you could probably look at potentially some best actor actresses. I mean, it's
well,
impossible to say because we haven't seen the movie, but I think
sure.
it's within the realm of possibility for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kind of going off, right, the Oscars. Once they kind of, you know, they really you know, they nominate someone for the first time, they kind of get attached to them, right? They, you know, you see
Yeah.
the same names, so that's just where I'm getting that from. But looks really great. It looks like, and you saw Get Out. I haven't seen it, but what did you think? Because there was a bit of a comedic scene in the trailer at the very beginning, right, where they're kind of in the car and listening to the radio, I suppose. Was there like that kind of comedy in Get Out as well?
Yeah. I mean, um, I think it definitely there's parts of it. I mean, I think the tone isn't it's not entirely kind of this horror film the whole way. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
it's these darker tones. I think there are certainly comedic tones to it.
Hmm.
But I think once you know get kind of an hour, you know, so I'm not sure exactly the time, but once you kind of get into
Yeah.
the meat of the movie, I mean, you know, it's a horror film. You understand it's not kind of like you know Keanu or one of their sketch like it's not
Oh, yeah.
driven by comedy, but there's certainly you can certainly
Yeah.
see that he was a comedy director and a sketch comedy guy. You could definitely see that in little
Okay.
things, but um, yeah, and like you said, you can see that in the trailer. Really, if you just watch the beginning of the trailer, it looks just kind of like a normal
It does.
film,
Yeah,
right?
it
Just kind of like a
does.
comedy,
Yeah.
and then it kind of halfway through flips it on its heels, and it's a full out, you know, horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of that, like, I think that was, it was pretty, like, yeah, I think it was pretty good for a horror trailer. Honestly, it was pretty damn good. So, yeah. So I'm probably, you know, thinking that it'll probably be around the same types of tone, like you talked about, the comedy and the horror, and that stuff. But, yeah, I wonder if that scene is, like, it's probably near the very beginning of the film, where that was taken from. And then, like you said, once you kind of get into it, it's more of the horror feel. So, anyways, I think there'll definitely be some acting, you know, nominations, or at least kind of people recognizing the performances, because they already look pretty damn good in the trailer. So yeah. So, anyways, I mean, any other thoughts on the trailer stuff?
No, I mean not really. Definitely excited for the film, and yeah, I hope it's another home run.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. So yeah. Anyways, so that'll be coming. I can't believe I forget. I think it's April. I think it's like April 19th. You know what? I'm gonna look it up just for some clarity here. Um, I believe it's April though. Cause I saw the trailer. Oh no, March 15th. March 15th. 2019, so that'll be coming out. So that'll be just in the first 3 months. That one, and again, you know, similar to Get Out as well, like we talked about. Get Out, I believe, came out in February.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and still contended at the Oscars. You know, for the next year. So that's something to look forward to as well. So, anyways, yeah. So that's it for the Us trailer there. So now let's talk about A Quiet Place. So again, you've seen this. I've been dying to see this. I don't know why I haven't watched it yet, but you know, John Krasinski. Love him in The Office, both of us. You know, probably
Yeah.
you more than me. You've watched it a couple times. Anyways, and Emily Blunt, she's great too. Mary Poppins, of course, right now. And so anyways, so John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, I guess, did a sit down for Deadline Hollywood this week. And the interviewer then asked John Krasinski, said, John, you're writing the sequel right now. Is it safe to say you won't be returning to the front of the camera? And so Krasinski then replied, it's a pretty good promise that I won't be coming back. And then he goes on to say about the sequel, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't want to do the sequel. It was never built to launch sequels, which we all knew, and the studio knew too, but also I'm a realist. I know that when you have a success like this, everyone wants to make another one. I told them to go find another filmmaker and writer, and they said, but you don't have an idea? But don't you have an idea? And he says, yeah, I have a tiny idea. So they said, okay, while we're talking to other people, keep thinking about it, right? So they basically, tricked him into writing it, and of course he is working on the sequel. So then he says, the idea for it is pretty simple. I'm writing now. I don't have it fleshed out quite yet, but the thought that occurred to me that really excited me about it was that most sequels are about the return of a hero or a villain. You take this character that people love once, and you bring them back, and you have to create a new world around them, and we have the exact opposite setup. We have the world, and you can drop whoever you want into that world, and everyone feels connected to it. So, and that just speaks to how great the first movie was in building that type of world. So, more details of this will come, I'm sure. I don't know if we'll even see it in 2020 because he's still writing it right now. But what are your, like, after seeing A Quiet Place #1, he confirmed here that he's not going to be in it. So what are your expectations then for a sequel?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think what he kind of was talking about there, it's the same world. You can kind of put anyone in it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a pretty simple idea in the first film. It's this world he created, obviously, for those of you who have not seen it or don't know, it's essentially a world where you can't speak or make noise,
Hmm.
kind of a post-apocalyptic world where these aliens are roaming Earth, and they um, they are attracted to things by noise, so that they can't see, but they essentially like the noise is their guide. So, for example, if somebody makes noise, that's how the animal can track them, or sorry, the alien, and then they can come and kill them or whatever. And so that's kind of the world. And so in the first one, it's just a family, right? And
Hmm.
it's almost like John Krasinski sat down when he was writing. It was like, what would be the most difficult things to do if you couldn't make noise? And then that's the film.
Yeah.
And so it's really simple, and it obviously it's a great film. I really enjoyed it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's really a great world to kind of be able to manipulate. So
Mm.
I don't know what he would do, but really I think any idea sort of he can really do anything within this world. Um, and I'm not sure what route he'll take. Kind of, would he do another family? Would he do, I don't know, like a
Hmm.
couple, or just really? There's so limitless options. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what he does.
Well, and I think he never confirms in this interview. It sounds like Emily Blunt won't be in it either. But he never confirms that like the kids won't be in it or something like that. Um, so we could see that, or maybe we could see again, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you could see a story that maybe takes place a little later with the kids grown up a
Yeah.
little bit, something like that. But yeah, I mean, really great stuff, obviously, right? Like you said, brilliant film, the first one. And, like you said, not too much of a complex idea, really. But it just was done amazingly. But honestly, I mean, let's talk about the performances. I mean, that's what really sold this film, right? I mean, John Krasinski, amazing. Emily Blunt was amazing. I think that Millicent Simmons, who was the girl, like the daughter, she was great too. So I mean, the performances definitely had a key in it, and I think that's going to be important for the second one too, to see who they get, right? Who they get as the cast, especially then if John Krasinski and Emily Blunt won't be returning. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. How do you feel about it? Do you think there should be a sequel for it?
I don't think there needs to be a sequel. But if he wants to make another, if he has a great idea, obviously I want him to be able to make that film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think what's interesting is, um, this could almost be a completely different family. It could be completely different people, different time. I heard some ideas that maybe it would be almost like a prequel, so
Mm,
it kind of shows the lead up to
yeah.
what happened. Because essentially in the movie, I think it's a few months in. I could be wrong, or a few years into this world.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not as if at the beginning of the movie they show what happens, right? It's we the movie starts and we're in this world. It's been this way for a while. I heard some
Okay.
ideas potentially you could see a prequel
Mm,
type film, or a film that's kind of disconnected from the first, but it's the same universe. So I think there's a lot of options.
yeah.
But yeah, certainly I don't think a sequel was either. I don't think it was. I don't think it's needed, and I don't think it was necessarily hinted at. Like you said, I think the movie just kind of stands on its own.
Well, yeah, because I just kind of asked that because he says, you know, I really didn't want to do the sequel, he says, but also I'm a realist, right? So, he knows obviously the success from the first one. And that's just like with every movie right now. I mean, if a movie does well, you're pretty much, well, especially with the superhero genre, I mean, Aquaman, you know, like, if it hits $1 billion, you can't tell me that they're not going to make a second one, right? Like,
Yeah.
so just with a lot of movies right now, I think that's a trend too. If it does really well, like A Quiet Place did, a sequel is on its way. So, anyways, yeah, I think that prequel idea would be great, or like I said, kind of maybe just a little bit or a few years after what happened. Yeah. So, anyways, and I'm wondering what they'll call it too. If it'll be like A
Yeah.
Quiet Place 2, or like you said, will it be kind of separate and they just kind of title it something else different? I mean, that's a possibility too. But I think, like you said, there's just a lot of potential for it at this point where they could kind of go anywhere with
Yeah.
it. So, did he wrote and directed the first?
I think so.
Wow,
And starred in it.
wow, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. So, yeah. Anyways, great stuff to hear. And like I said, I don't know if we'll even. I mean, we probably won't see it in 2019.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they might begin like production on it or something like that. But it was earlier this year, right? It was like in
Yeah.
March,
February,
something
like that.
Yeah. So yeah, probably like 2020, probably the soonest we would see something like this, probably a trailer or something like that. But anyways, just interesting to talk about. I know that you've seen it and that you really enjoyed it. So great stuff here. All right, so let's get to the film of the week segment. So this is Greg and I try to go out to see a new film every week. Last week I gave my thoughts on The Grinch, and a couple weeks ago you gave your thoughts on Spider-Man, right, Into the Spider-Verse. And this week I got to see Aquaman. So just keep in mind these thoughts are from someone who haven't seen Wonder Woman, haven't seen Justice League. What other superhero movies are out there that I haven't seen? Like pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
I think you and I talked about this. What was the last superhero movie I saw? Iron Man 3 or something like that?
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think back. There's probably a closer one, but anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
you may have seen like a Captain America or something, or you might have seen
yeah.
Avengers. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I think I saw
Okay.
that. So maybe that would be I don't know. Anyways, so this is coming from someone who's not a huge fan and doesn't know a lot about it. But to be honest, I mean, at the very least, it's entertaining. And I mean, I think that's something that obviously hardcore comic book fans are looking for more. But I think at the end of the day, a Christmas movie like this, kind of a blockbuster film, I think entertainment value is the most important thing, and it for sure is. Visually, very, very good. The underwater effects are just amazing in it. Jason Momoa, obviously, great performance by him. Amber Heard was pretty good in it. Willem Dafoe, I think, had the best though. I think a lot of people are talking about that, but I would agree with that. His and something that I heard from some people as well after seeing it too is a lot of the actors gave like really good performances in this, like serious performances, right? And that's not always the case for superhero movies, because they had Nicole Kidman who is, an insane actress. Big Little Lies, especially, great performance in that. And so to have her, to have Willem Dafoe, two great names there. Am I missing anyone else?
Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson? Okay.
Uh, that's kind of the main.
I think that's it. Yeah, well, I've
The
already
main
mentioned
actors.
Amber Heard, Jason Momoa, but they're not quite in that category, or at least yet. But yeah, I just think a lot of people gave like actually pretty damn good performances, or at least for a superhero movie. And obviously there are some bad things about it. I just, and again, for me, I don't know how typical superhero movies really function, but to me, a lot of it seemed a little cliche, just throughout, just a lot of cliche moments, the kind of the kissing moment, like, oh, these two don't know each other and they don't like each other at the beginning, but then at the end they end up together, because he's the main superhero guy and she's kind of his sidekick throughout the show, or throughout the movie, sorry, so... Anyways, but other than that, and I like I said, I thought it was really visually appealing as well. What I didn't understand, though, I don't know if you know enough about this either, but I just don't understand why they had the whole Black Manta storyline in this movie. Because, yeah, just one sec. So, because I think that the main plot of him trying to, overthrow his brother and get the kingdom, ultimately become Aquaman, right? I think that was a good enough plot in itself. I get that you want to introduce Black Manta, and let's be real, I mean, in the second movie, that's probably going to be the focus. But I just feel like it just took up way too much of the movie and really kind of distracted us from the main plot, which was actually pretty good, in my opinion. So I think maybe you spend a few minutes on Black Manta, but I think he had too big of a part. But do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I'm
Yeah.
not really sure. But yeah, I mean, I've heard a little bit about Black Manta, but like I didn't read the comics, so I'm not really familiar with the character. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I just to me, and again, I mean, maybe he is really significant in the story of Aquaman, and that could be. I just don't think in this first movie that you needed as much. Like, he was basically around until the last big fight scene. I mean, he was around till then, and it was kind of like, B plot, but it was like more than that. Like, there were scenes with just Black Manta in it, that lasted way too long, in my opinion. So. Anyways, that would be kind of my main thing with that, is I didn't really understand that, but overall, a pretty good film. I think it definitely deserves the money it's getting at the box office, and we're definitely seeing the kind of outcome of the film for sure, with that, and I think the critics they don't mind it either. I mean, I think it's decent rating on a Rotten Tomatoes, and I think a lot of people are liking it. So, anyways, that comes from me. So, take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But yeah, it was good. So, and I told you too, like, I was willing to see this movie. I'm not a huge fan of superhero movies, but this one is just something that I just, it's entertaining. It looked cool, just in general, and I think for other people that's the same as well. I think a lot of people will be attracted to this one. So anyway, but you want to see it though, right?
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, eventually. So hopefully, hopefully you get to see it, and then you can give me your thoughts on it, and then we can talk a little bit more about that, because lot of stuff to discuss in it for sure. And I do feel like it's a long movie, and again, that kind of goes back to the Black Manta parts in it. But yeah, it is a long movie. So there you go. All right, so that just about does it then for all that stuff. And we just thought we'd end it off, since this is the last episode of Let's Talk Cinema for 2018. We thought we'd end it off with this question right here, which is, what are your most anticipated films for 2019? So I believe we each picked 5 films that are coming in 2019 and gave our list. So how about we'll just do like one and one
sure.
until we're done. So what is your first anticipated film?
So this is a movie I've been really excited for a couple of years when I saw, or when I first heard the news of it. Um, And when I saw it, you know, that it was in pre-production and post-production, and this is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino's newest movie. I think it's going to be his second last movie or third last movie.
Okay.
This is a movie that obviously I think is really interesting. I'm a big fan of Quentin Tarantino, um, and I think he's had a lot of great movies recently. And this one obviously is Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie, and some other big names as well. But those are
Yeah.
kind of the three main characters, or at least three main actors in it. I think it's going to be. I'm really excited for it. Sounds like a really interesting movie. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino. This type of movie's right up his alley.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, I think it's gonna be really interesting, and I'm really excited to see what he does um, with these actors. He's never worked with Leonardo DiCaprio or Margot Robbie, so we'll have to see how that works out. But I'm really excited for this one.
And we talked about that may even contending at the Oscars, right? I mean,
Yeah.
with that kind of cast and that director, it just seems really awesome. So yeah, for sure that would be on my list too. Didn't quite make these five, but for sure. So then my first one, I gotta go with Us, the Jordan Peele movie. We just talked about the trailer. Yeah, I mean it looks great. Like we said in the trailer, I mean there's not much more to say. It looks great. It's Jordan Peele, and you know I'm looking forward to it. And we'll see it in the first kind of third of the month here, or quarter of the year, I suppose. So yeah. All right. So
All right.
what's your next one then?
So my next one is obviously I think this is for a lot of people would be right at the top of the list. Avengers Endgame, the final movie with kind of all the mainstays of the MCU over the past 10, 15 years. It's going. I think it's going to be awesome. And really excited for that one.
Okay. Um. So that's your second one. Okay. And
Yeah.
so then my second one, I gotta go with Lion King, right? You know the live action remake, coming out in 2019. Looks awesome. But trailer really mesmerized. I think everybody, especially you know from the original, that kind of nostalgia coming back. So, and they got some of the original voices coming back too. So, James Earl Jones, I believe. So you know what's not to love about that one. Really looking forward to that one.
My next one, obviously a movie that came out this year, is getting a sequel. That was pretty obvious. Probably gonna have a third movie as well. A character in an IP I really like, Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Hmm.
Really enjoyed the first film. I think it's really good, and Tom Holland as Spider-Man is terrific. Really excited to see a sequel, see where they go with the character, and see how it kind of works in with Infinity War and Endgame, and kind of how they're gonna or what they're gonna do with that film in terms of the other films in the MCU.
All right. So then my next one is Toy Story 4. I think we're both looking forward to this one. But yeah, just really great stuff hearing about it. We've talked about it a little bit on this show. Looks really great. And of course, follow up to Toy Story 3, which we both agree that's, you know, probably maybe the best Toy Story film, probably. Um,
Definitely, right there with the first two. Yeah.
yeah. So it should be great to see this follow up. So,
So yeah, another one you had mentioned this Lion King.
mm,
Big fan, of course, of the cartoon. I'm just really excited to see kind of how what they do with it and the reception um, of the movie, kind of even more than the actual movie. To see kind of how it does at the box office, see how it bodes for Disney with all their live action films. And I want to see. I genuinely am interested to see if they kind of take a different direction with it, or if it's just kind of a live action version of the cartoon. But
yeah.
either way, really interesting.
That's what some people said about the trailer, right? It kind of looks like that. But yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have to see. So my next one, which is probably number one for me, is It Chapter 2. Love the first It. I'm not a huge horror fan, but I really did enjoy the first It. And it's going to be great to see Bill Hader, on screen. And who else? Chris Pratt, I believe. Is it? Or
What is this?
am
Sorry?
I totally off base with that? It Chapter 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Bill Hader, I believe Jessica Chastain. I feel like I'm totally off base with Chris Pratt. you know, but great cast, right? Of course, it's the adult kind of version now of it. And I'm really looking forward to it. So that'd probably be my most anticipated there.
Yeah. Then my last one here, another superhero movie. You know, I think for superhero movies in general, I think they always get the hype. And at the end of the day, obviously, there's a lot of other great films to come out, but
Mm.
in terms of building up hype and what movies, they really try to get you excited for, it's definitely superhero movies. So that's why there's three on my list here. But anyway, Dark Phoenix, the X-Men film, really excited for this. I was kind of mixed on the last X-Men movie, but I really like the X-Men films in general. I really enjoy. They're kind of probably my favorite superhero films, and so this is a really important film in the franchise. Not only because the last one didn't perform that well and wasn't received very well, but also because this is a kind of the summation of the last four, or this will be the fourth film with the kind of the rebooted X-Men. So
Mm.
I think it's very important for a couple of different reasons. They also want to get themselves back on the map with Avengers just dominating and dominating the MCU, and
Yeah.
the Fox Disney merger happening. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It might turn out really terrible,
Mm.
but I think it's really going to be an interesting storyline to follow. Like I said, given that the Fox Disney merger was happening kind of simultaneously of
Mm.
the start with the production of the film.
Yeah. All right, and then just to end it off with my last one would be Aladdin. Really looking forward to it. I talked about this last episode with the first look, right? The first images of what it looks like. Really great. Is it so? Will Smith, I know, of course. I'm gonna actually look up the other two. It's Naomi Scott, I believe, and I always forget the name of the Maina Masood is playing Aladdin. So yeah, and then Naomi Scott and Will Smith. So just Will Smith. It's gonna be great to see him as the genie. And again, another live action Disney remake. Happening in 2019, and I think it's going to be great. All the pictures look pretty good. I know some people were complaining about the genie, you know, Will Smith not being blue or whatever like that, and some of the costumes people were complaining about, but overall, I think it's going to be great just to see this live action take on it. And like you said, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Aladdin, too, whether it'll be kind of just a live action version of the original, how far they're going to stray from it, right, like we talked with Lion King. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Disney, really great stuff. We didn't mention Dumbo as well.
Right.
And that's coming too. A lot of people look forward to that one. So, yeah, I mean, some really great movies. To me, I think, you know, a lot more are going to be coming out and, you know, kind of coming down the pipe here as we get into the year. But for right now, I think we picked some really great films, and it's looking to be a great year. So, anyways, guys, that will just about do it then for this episode. Yeah, like I said, we're really looking forward to 2019, and this will be the final episode for 2018. So we'll see you guys then next week, back on Monday, I believe, which will be the 7th, January 7th, I believe.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you so much for watching this one. Thank you, Greg, for joining me as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we look forward to the next couple weeks. Going to be interesting here with the box office. Not many new movies opening, but we'll see how Aquaman and company does there. So anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next week on Monday. See you guys.